Hey guys, it's Don here from the board. I do apologize for the slight delay in proceedings today. We were just having some last minute discussions in regards to today's build, and so I'm just moving some things around on my desk to get it all set up and whatnot so we can check out what is actually happening today. So I want to say thank you to the two people watching, Harel and anybody else who's lurking. Now, it is the middle of the morning here at the moment. I am on holidays today from Easter, which is why I'm able to do this. But I also would like to say that my wife is actually sick, so if you hear a bit of sort of unfortunately sick person noises happening in the background, or if she's wandering back and forth, then that's the reason why. So today, I'm going to be building a custom keyboard thanks to William, who has actually sent this keyboard provided to me to actually build for him. The original design intent is not going to be what we're actually going to be building today, but it's still going to be a working keyboard with an unusual layout. So let us first check out what's actually happening in regards to the keyboard itself and what it looks like and some of its features, and then we'll get cracking into actually putting this together. So let's go. Desktop, here we go. Right. So the keyboard itself is called the ML-104, and as the name implies, it is a full-size keyboard. It's actually so large that I've got bits and pieces on my kid's table next to me just because I want to make sure that I don't damage it. And in the context, it's not so much that it's large like the down bubble in its actual physical size, so much as that it's heavy. Now, if you saw the stream that I did a couple of days ago for Easter, then you would have seen that I talked about the box being 4.5 kilos. Well, it's not kidding, because this is an absolute unit, an absolute slab of a bottom piece. So there's the actual bottom piece. We've got a milled out insert there for the connector, and that is a one piece right there. It's very hefty. We've got a good amount of angle there, and it's incredibly solid. Like, I'm not going to even bother doing a flex test on it, right? Now we've got a PCB and a matching plate that will live in it. Now, of course, that plate is the other way around, and it should sit like that because it is a full-size keyboard. And then it has a top lid section just like that. That is meant to be how it ends up together. So it's actually a fairly standard looking keyboard. What's going to be slightly different for this design is that it's going to be an ANSI setup with a ISO enter. So it's not going to be the big fat ass upside down one, but the standard sort of ISO enter. The implication of that, though, is we're actually going to have one less 1U key once this is built, because normally up on an ANSI board, above the 2.25U enter is actually the pipe slash backslash key. Sorry, forward slash key. But because we're going to be using the ISO enter in this context, then we're actually not going to have that. And in a lot of the 105 ISOs, it's actually a short left shift with the 1U over here, but William doesn't actually want that layout. He wants it to be fairly standard with the ANSI. So we're actually going to cut away that and have the standard 2.25 left shift. So, but that's the joy of customs. The second thing that's going to be a little bit different, and what is going to be interesting, is that this board was originally designed to have hot swaps in it. So I actually have hot swaps here that were part of the components that were delivered to me to actually build this kit. We're not doing hot swaps today because we've discovered, unfortunately, that the switches, which are the Zelio V2s, one of the pins is actually too fat to fit inside these hot swaps. So this is part of the reason why there was a delay, because we were having these discussions about the impact on that and how the build would change. The build is still going ahead, but now we're going to be doing direct solder to the actual PCB. So it's going to go from a split mount, and when I say it's going to be a split mount, if you listen to our podcast, there's this really fantastic cheat sheet that's done by Thomas Bart, and it shows the different mounts. So originally, the actual PCB was going to be split mount into the bottom. So the actual PCB itself has mounting points that you can see here, and it would be screwed into the case with hot swaps. Then the plate and lid would be put on it, and then you'd plug your switches in. But now that we're not doing hot swap, it means the PCB is going to be held onto the switches through the plate in a standard top mount fashion. So this plate will screw into the lid, and then we'll solder it through. Okay, so that is what we're actually doing today. So that can go back for the moment. Now we've got the other packet here, which contains screws. There's the breakout for the USB connector and the cables that will connect to the PCB. And we've got some orange LEDs that will also go into the section up here for some pinhole light indicators. Now, this is really important in that they have to go on first before anything else is soldered in, because once I can mount the plate into the top, which is fine, but I have to solder that because that's going to be obstructed. I can't really solder them properly if that's going to be in the way, and then I can actually screw the then I can do the rest of it because they'll be already behind there. Okay, so what I want to do, I guess, is first of all, I just want to show you exactly what kind of weight we're talking about here, just because it's staggering. So I'm just going to gently, I know bubble wrap doesn't really have much weight to it, but it's got to come out of the bubble wrap anyway, so that can go aside. Now, just trying to find places for everything here. I'm going to get my trusty scales. Okay, so we're going to tear that back to 0, and then this case bottom, oh, it seems to have been pressing the button. Dang it. I actually don't know how to disable the hold. Turn off. Dang you. Alright. Let's just give it a hard boot. I'm not a scales expert, so alright, so maybe I'll put it this way this time, and then I'll turn that on. Now this is meant to hold up to 15 kilos, so I would not expect that this keyboard is going to cause it an issue. Right, so we're looking at 1.75 almost. 175 just for the bottom. And if let's tear it. There we go, let's try that again. Okay. Much better. 1.8. Then the PCB and the top. 2.8, 2.58. And then we'll put your switches on top. 2.7. Now there's a bit of extra weight in here because of the excess screws and whatnot. And then of course you've got keycaps and stuff like that. But you're going to be looking around a 3 kilogram build, roughly. So it's a good amount of heft in this keyboard. And then of course the extra 1.5 was because there was a lot of packaging that was involved to protect this board as it was making its way over to me. So you can see it's definitely a good, solid keyboard that is happening here. All right, so let's take that aside. Let's move that off for the moment, because that's really kind of one of the last stages that's happening here. And that will head back over. So the first thing that we're going to need to do, besides putting these scales away, is that orange LEDs need to go on. So my helping hands. Okay. Right. So that's. I'm gonna open the microphone just a touch. Oh yes. Once I set this up, and while I'm doing that, I'll have a quick chat. So last time that I did a stream, I did a giveaway for some pins. So I've got another one of these, the Board Podcast pins, that is going to be up for grabs today. It's very simple. All you have to do is, in the chat right now, I am going to post a... Ooh, that got overridden because I was looking for that mounting sheet. Where's this? Okay. So there's going to be a link here in the chat, which will go to a form. It's just a Google form. And put in your responses if you want to have a random draw between 1 to 1,000 on winning that pin. And whoever, of course, wins it, I will send it out to you in the mail very, very shortly. And then you can have the Board Podcast lapel pin, which should be pretty cool, I think. Oh, well, you know, bias, of course, right? Completely biased. Okay, so make sure that's not going to get damaged. Make sure that goes there. So my setup is a little bit behind because I didn't know what was going to be happening today. So I'm just putting all the bits and pieces. So while I'm doing that, yeah, if you guys have any questions, please throw them my way. Or if you just want to talk about the weather, it's not very much happening in the chat at the moment, but it's also quite quiet. There's only 4 people watching at the moment. That's okay. I would expect there to be not necessarily a lot of people, simply because, you know, it's going to be a work day for a lot of people today. Unless if you were lucky to have the extra time and leave, like I did to take off, especially after Easter and a long weekend. Alright, so let's find the end of this tape. So we're going to need 3 of these little orange LEDs. So there's 1, 2, and 3. Absolutely massive packet, but that's okay. Getting hot in here. The day's warming up. Just going to turn on a little side USB fan. Now the other thing that I will have to do with this is, these are the little breakouts that will be used with this. So I'm going to have to connect the breakouts to the board after I've soldered these and plug it in and actually test it. I don't know if this has been flashed with anything. I hope it has. I actually don't know. Only because I want to be able to test that the LEDs are functioning correctly before I build the rest of it. If they're not functioning correctly, then I'm going to be potentially in a little bit of trouble. Now, from what I can tell, and from my Google foo and experience in general, the diodes with the short leg will go towards the square side. So short leg should go towards the square side, and the flat side should also go to the square side, which is the same one. So I'm just going to drop that in. just like that. And just like that. Now, because these are sitting flush, I don't have an opportunity to give them a tack solder from the top like I normally would if I was doing like resistors and things like that. Hey Nick, it's great to have you join us. So what I'm going to be doing then is I'm just going to be bending these diode legs from underneath so they sit as flush as possible, and then I'll solder them on. So now it's time to power on the iron, and then we can get going. Now as that's heating up, so thank you very much, Nick, for joining us on Patreon and being one of our new Patreon supporters. It really appreciate it. You know, the funds that we get from Patreon help support being able to get supplies for doing builds like this, as well as covering things like post for when we send out pins and prizes and other things, giveaways that we might be running. Only because locally within Australia, that's okay. You know, I'm more than happy to sort of pay that cost. But as we start to send stuff overseas, sometimes it can get quite expensive, especially because Australia Post and postage rates suck. If you're an Australian, you would know this very well. They up the price, and there's really no justification for upping the price. It's just one of those things that they do because they want to have more profits or something of that nature. Now, I'm gonna bend that leg. These legs feel super fragile compared to diode legs that I normally solder with. Okay, so hopefully these are going to be sitting relatively straight. Now let's flip this around. Okay. Now this board, you can see, has Amtra's logo on it. So I've been asking Amtra all sorts of questions as part of preparations for this build, because when it's somebody's custom, it's somebody's baby, you 100% do not want to Gumby it up, do you? No siree. No siree. Especially not on a live stream. Now I just realized that's actually off camera, so there it is, just for your viewing pleasure. Hello Sebastian, thank you very much for joining in and checking out the stream. So what I've just done, for those who might have just come in to check out the stream, is I've just gone over and shown what the actual case and build is going to look like. It's actually slightly different from the original intent. So I know that the description said we would be doing hot swaps today, but that has actually changed due to some issues with hot swap sockets and Zeal V2s. Just to reiterate for those who might have just come in, the Zeal V2 switch pin, one side is actually too fat to fit into the standard hot swaps, which is I think the 7305 Milmax that we're going to be used today. So we're not going with hot swaps, we're just going to go with standard solder. It is not the down bubble. It is not the down bubble. How exciting would that have been if it was actually the down bubble, right? No, I actually still do not have box pinks to use. So I cannot build the down bubble. Now, I'm going to connect, hopefully I'm going to connect this the right way. Rightio. So I've connected that. Just waiting, letting the solder on that cool down. So the pins are on top. It would be very bad for me if I break some guy's board on live stream. So I'm doing everything that I can not to. Sorry about that crotch shot there, but I was just swapping some cables around so that I actually have something I can plug into. Hello, Granny Gear Killer. It's great to see you while you work on your car. So he asks, fan of tactile switches. I've ordered MX Browns, however I was contemplating Box Royals. Box Royals will give you a much more tactile sensation compared to MX Browns. So I'm going to tell you that right now. If you are after an extremely tactile sensation, then the Royals will be what you want. Whereas if you want something that's a little bit softer, then yeah, then you would want to go with the Browns. So we can see one of the three is actually lighting up. So the numlock by default is lighting up, which is fantastic. That's exactly what I want to see. Now, where is my short switch? Okay, so I have my box yellow, which is a sticky switch. As you can see, it's stuck. But this is perfect because it allows me to test if things are working. So now I'm going to go with caps lock. Is that caps lock? No, that was tab. Caps lock on, caps lock off. Caps lock on, caps lock off. Okay, and then scroll lock, I believe is the middle one. There we go. So scroll lock on, scroll lock off. So the LEDs are functional. Hooray. Okay, so let's disconnect this and keep on going. So mission accomplished. Right, now what I want to do is I want to clip these legs. And then we can move on to the next phases of building. So there's a bit of a discussion that's happening in the chat at the moment about tactile switches and T1s. And Sebastian is talking about the fan pad. So the fan pad, for those who aren't super familiar with it, is one of my own harebrained creations. It's basically a replacement for the function keys and the nav cluster and numpad. So if you're using a 60% and you like to travel with your 60%, but you still want those additional keys at a home base station, then you can actually have that pad sitting there as an aside. Whereas when you go mobile, you just take the 60% with you. I designed a couple of versions of it, and one of them was a 3D printed one, which is what Sebastian is talking about. New to QMK, but so it is challenging, but it's actually a really good platform to learn, especially if it's something nice and simple. And I'm going to honestly say that the fan pad is actually a relatively simple QMK thing, whereas the down bubble, for example, was an absolute nightmare when it came to programming it for QMK. It took me a very long time to do the down bubble. Now, Nick Boker is talking about the T1 for tactility. So the T1 for tactility is, I actually can't comment because I don't have any T1s. Just give me a second while I've still got that line of thought going. Okay, just because I don't want to cause much damage. Right, so T1s are made by KBD fans, and they are a competitor to the Holy Panda. That's really the best way and only way that you can describe it. Yeah, as Sebastian's just said, it's a Holy Panda clone. They've also now got koala switches, which I think is basically a recolor of the T1s, from what I've been told, from what I've heard around the traps in rumor mills. So yeah, 1, I don't have Holy Pandas, so I can't make a comparison. 2, I don't have T1s, so can't compare. 3, I don't have Jesus switches, can't compare. So we're sort of getting to that aspect of there's a lot of things that I can't compare. So I can't make a lot of comment on that. Now, we've got some screws here. So these are just M2s, and we'll be needing some of these to actually attach this plate. So I need to find my little ceramic dish there. Now, because we're no longer attaching the PCB to the case bottom and everything is relying upon the plate being attached to the lid to support the weight of this build, I'm actually going to screw in all of them. So we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we're going to need 12 of these 4mm screws. So there's 3. I think that's probably more than 12. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so that's more than plenty. We'll just put those back in and then I'll pack the rest back in a moment. Now, I've been told these are M2s because the packet said it was an M2. So, get out my Gorilla Grips, start putting them in. That is not, is that an M2? Says M2. This says it's an M2, a 2mm. Why you no fit? Well, that's not very good. Let's see if my Weeha can do this. Otherwise, we're going to have a challenge. Okay, so the Weeha has some hex 2.0s, which is this tiny itty bitty one. Let's see if that's no good. Let's try the 1.5. Okay, so the 1.5 fits. Oh, thank goodness for that. So yeah, all right. A little bit weird there, but we have a solution regardless. Now, there's a really good discussion going on here at the moment in regards to tactile switches. Glad that you guys are having that solid discussion for those people who are able to be involved in the chat. So the koalas do have a different top because the T1s have a clear housing, whereas the koala has a solid housing, so the material itself is inherently going to be slightly different. But I think I was more talking about the feel of it in its a tactile stem might be exactly the same, but just in different colors. As far as switch testing goes, yeah, it's really great to have a very wide range of switches on a switch tester. The only thing that I always tell people is that you've got to be careful when you switch test because it is only a single switch. It doesn't give you the whole experience across your entire hands when you are typing and running at full pelt. Pressing a single switch versus actually typing and the combined sensation across your whole hands in the different positions as you type and move will actually be quite different. Okay, it's quite different. William, yes, the Weeha set is actually a really nice piece of kit. I was very lucky to have got this on special, so I saved a bit of money on that. With the actual cost, including expedited shipping, was cheaper than its original price. Now, a lot of sites offer the Weeha, and a lot of those, you know, we're talking about like GearBest and Banggood and stuff like that. They will have discounts on a regular basis, so you can just hang out and wait for one of those discounts to occur and pick it up. It's really nice and it's compact. The only thing that I said in my review, I think that I would have preferred it to have had, was the insert tray is plastic. The case on the outer is metal, so it would have actually been nicer had they made it with a metal insert tray as well. With, you know, it's just for the complete experience, I guess, of it being a premium screwdriver. Not that you're really paying a premium. It was only like, I don't know, I think it cost me 18 US or something like that. Yeah, it's not really what I would call an expensive screwdriver set. But so far, so good. I've had a really good time using it, and everything that I've had to do with it has been effortless. It's smooth. It's quite comfortable. It's a great screwdriver. It's weird, like if you want to think about that, there's probably screwdriver enthusiasts out there. But then at the same time, you know, we're keyboard enthusiasts, right? So it's not really that far-fetched either in that context. Now, Sebastian, yes, live stream pin giveaway. That is correct. I will be giving away one of the Board Podcast's lapel pins. There is a link. There it is. That's one of the... Oh, sorry. That's one of the pins there that I'll be giving away. Now, if you haven't seen it, because I don't know how chat works, if you try and go back and you haven't joined, then there's the actual link to the form. Please do go and fill it out if you would like a chance to actually win one of those. Okay. Now, that is done. The Weha can temporarily live somewhere aside. These screws will go back into that packet, and I will seal that up. Okay, that packet hasn't been opened, so they can go back in. And now we're going to get to the bulk of the activity, which is actually putting this together. So, LEDs over here with their little housings over there. We're going to drop that in. Nice. Then, yeah, so Sebastian, I actually did that on my last stream. So, yeah, I figured, you know what? I've got enough of them at the moment that I can afford to do that with the stream. And of course, thanks to Patreon supporters, you know, financially, we've got enough to cover our monthly podcasting host costs at the moment. And it gives me a little bit of extra to save up for things like the Down Bubble project, as well as paying for shipping for giveaways and things like that. So now, this is going to be a little bit different, because normally what I would do if I was soldering with a plate, I would actually use my helping hands and clamp it. But because there's no easy way to actually clamp this case lid, the clamps just don't open wide enough to support it to the point where I'm super comfortable with that. I'm going to actually build it on the table top. Okay, so what I will do now is I'm going to insert some of these positions in, and then I'll solder it, which will sort of hold the PCB in place, and then I'll snap the rest of them through the PCB and then continue to actually solder on. So now I'm just going to tip that out, and we'll put in essentially what we're talking about is north pins for south facing LEDs, if there was any LEDs. There's a little bit of wiggle room on that, but that's okay. I'm going to strategically put some of these in so they're supporting the PCB in general. Just means that I have to be very careful when I start soldering that I don't press too hard and pop the switches out. So you never want to do that, because obviously that's going to cause you problems with pin alignment, and your PCB may be at an angle if it's not supported properly. So I'm just snapping in a bunch of switches in some positions that will essentially hold up the corners of the PCB, and that will allow me to do what I need to do, assuming all of these are in the correct same orientation. William, you're still watching this. I've just realized we have another problem. And I'm glad that I've realized this problem. You don't have stabilizers, and you can't retroactively fit stabilizers to a standard soldered keyboard. What do you want to do about stabilizers? This is a build that just keeps giving. Now, I do have stabilizers, but so for example, I've got a packet of stabilizers right here on my desk. Yeah, it actually lives on my desk here, by the way. I didn't have it secretly stashed or anything like that. It was just this packet that I've had. The problem is, these stabilizers that I have are Chinese clones, okay? And it's because I build builds for the Switch library, and they don't have to be fantastic builds, because the intent there is really more about the experience of the Switch rather than the quality of the board. And it's actually easier and cheaper that I build all of those keyboards in the Switch library to be the same. And so buying Chinese clones of stabilizers means they're all going to be the same experience. Now, so William, who's actually in the chat, this is actually his board, as he's just mentioned that, you know, he would love to see a group buy for this design go forward at some point if it does. I'm happy to put these in, but as you said, they're coming in. They're on their way. So there's some days off, and this pretty much stops today's build, because if I start soldering, I cannot install stabilizers once it's soldered in. I guess we're going to wait for those stabilizers, William. Now, this is what happens when you live stream, right? I wouldn't really say that today is a live stream fail. It's just one of these things that happen. Solder the other switches in. Sebastian, it doesn't work that way. If I solder any switches in, I can't access the PCB to snap in the stabilizers, because they are PCB mounted stabilizers. If you have a look at the actual plate design, they do not support plate mount stabilizers. So they have to be PCB mount stabilizers. And you actually cannot snap them in once you've soldered in. And I'm not going to go and solder these in to have to desolder the whole board again to put in stabilizers. So I didn't say that you were a dingus, Sebastian, but it's just one of those things that you have to think about when you do these kinds of things. So what I'm going to do now, in the interest of keeping things happy, is I'm going to take out these switches so the pins don't get bent while these are in storage and awaiting. And then we can just go and chat, I suppose, hang out for a very brief period of time. Unless if there's anything else that you guys feel like you want me to do, to talk, to chat about. I'm still going to do this giveaway, by the way. I mean, you guys have actually turned up. Well, I don't know if having those Milmax is going to help today. I mean, if you can find alternative Milmax sockets and you want them in, because I haven't done anything besides put these LEDs on, I can build this as the design intent is. There's no rush for me to build this. It's entirely up to you on how you want to go with it. It's your board, it's your custom. So just tell me, we can have more chat about this later, but you just tell me how you want this to go ahead, because it's your baby, right? Now, so Sebastian is asking about what the deal is with box pink switches. So Novel Keys actually had some in stock, and I didn't buy them from Novel Keys because I wanted to support our local supply chain in Australia, which at the moment for box pinks is Daily Clack. Daily Clack is a small vendor, high fatty, and I want to do everything that I can to support local. I could have bought them from Novel Keys direct and had them sent to me, and I could have been under, the next phase of building the down bubble, but being community orientated, I wanted to support Daily Clack. That's really why. And then of course they ran out of stock, and so the next restock is actually in May. So I don't know what Daily Clack's cash flow is like and what Daily Clack's purchase cycle is going to be like, and minimum quantities to order and things like that. Then it's going to be one of those challenges. But I'm not in a rush to build a down bubble because I want to do it right in a way rather than to rush through it. Now, Isaac, welcome to sorry I didn't catch you earlier. Thank you very much for catching this live stream. Really appreciate you coming along and supporting us here. Now, you're saying that the down bubble uses a blue pill for the MCU. I don't know what a blue pill for the MCU means. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more for me? Just seeing what else is happening in the chat. So they're talking a little bit about Otomu Skies by the looks of it. So Otomu Skies, I don't have the V2.2, so if you may have seen a video that I did a while ago, then you would have seen that I had these Otomus, but they actually turned out to be the V1 Skies. The V2s are also kind of like known as the Heisenbergs because they have like a clear blue top, which is similar to the drugs that were being made in Breaking Bad by Heisenberg. I'm trying to find my sack of diode leg cutoffs. These are incredibly useful for doing things like hand-wired builds. So, yeah. Now, so Isaac, Nick tells me that the blue pill is a microcontroller. Is it powered by one of those STM32 development boards? Canon Keys uses them on their budget boards. So the answer to that is no. I do not use the blue pill. I actually use a 8090 USB clone. I'm just rummaging around. This is what I use for the down bubble. So that's the actual controller there. You can pick these up on AliExpress or Taobao, and it essentially is a clone of the Teensy 2++. So you can see it's the 90 USB 1286 controller. I think these are like 16 US each, roughly, which, yeah, does the job because it will support a full-size keyboard with the number of pinouts without you having to do some kind of weird matrix configuration that you might have to if you used a smaller controller. So that's actually what I use. Okay, now to wrap and protect, we're gonna go put that in there. Is that gonna work? Okay, so let's just put that side down. And that'll just roughly fit into that. Fold that over, and that'll protect that. Rightio. Any other random questions? I'm just trying to think off the top of my head if I have anything that I could actually be ready to build, but I don't have anything that I had prepared today because I was super super keen and geared up to put this thing together, which it's a little bit of a disappointment, but you know, that's what life is. That's what prototyping is like. So now what I will do, because I don't know if a lot of you guys, especially if you're new to my content and my project, and some of you might be wondering what the heck is a down bubble, then I'm just going to go into the other room where it is, and I'm going to grab it out so you guys I can just show it off on stream, because that means I can put this guy away as well at the same time. So I'll be back very quickly. Okay, so that is, let me just unplug that, move that out of the way, it's sufficiently cooled now. Keep packing some things away. I have like this cardboard box that all my soldering kit sort of neatly fits into, which was quite fortuitous really, and that actually acts as a perfect lid that just sits on top of it. So it actually makes it really easy to sort of move it about. So that is the beast. That is the down bubble at the moment. So we've got that ply, the 10mm ply base. We've got some threaded inserts that are put into the bottom here, and then the bolts go all the way through, and they are some M3 bolts that are now fitting beautifully flush with the actual top surface there, as you can see, right? So there, I had to do a bit of filing. As you can see, I filed it down to the purple mark, which gives me the cable clearance. And for the context, then that is the same controller that I showed before, and it's all hooked up using that breakout style like I did before. And then of course that's the actual underside. I've taped over the exposed part there because I had some concerns about potential shortage, since the inside of the actual case here is quite hefty. It's very beefcake there. I think if I move into a next iteration of this, if there's sufficient interest after I build this, I would need to mill out a space in there to ensure that if you solder it like normal, because you'll notice this is completely flush. I actually soldered it using these legs, using a tape to hold them in place and everything else, and then taking the tape off it, so it would be as low as possible, because if you don't do that, then you're going to have potential clearance issues on the underside, because it'll actually stick out too far in contact on the bottom. So the reset switch and everything else is all fine. It's all hunky-dory. Now I'm not going to take the inordinate number of screws out to show you how that sits, because obviously I'm not going to solder it together at the moment. But I do really like the fact that I went with a unfinished look to it. I chose not to get it anodized, and I actually took a fine grit sandpaper to it, and you'll see it's got all that scratch and scuff mark on it, because part of the design that I had in mind was I wanted it to be that industrial look. And if you actually ever go to a workshop in a tool shop, or so, because I work in the defense industry, nothing is pristine, right? You go and see the equipment that is on board our service, vehicles and craft, and they are beat as. but they have that wear and they've got that look of authenticity and they've got that look of use. A shiny keyboard, like, it's fine. It looks nice, right? Like, it's all, you know, polish, clean, reflecting. For me, as a hands-on, like, you just look at the state of my desk, right? I've got, like, you know, burn marks. I've got, like, stain marks from casting and resin, and I've got, you know, like, there's marks there from clay work, and, you know, I've got, like, a pad here that I put hot things on and stuff like that. Like, a shiny fingerprint magnet is not me. So when I got this and I scuffed it up, I was actually really happy with how this looks, and it would fit in the office really well in just basically having a board that is just like, this is like mill grade keyboard, you know, zombie apocalypse, beat somebody over the head type of stuff. And Isaac says that he can't wait to see that thing built. Well, I can't wait to have this built, because then I can take it to work and just hammer away on this instead of my 3D printed version of it. Right, now this will obviously wrap the build, unless if there's anything else that people want to chat about or ask about, or any other random things. Now, I noticed that right now I'm going to refresh this sheet, and there's only 3 responses. So out of the 7 people who are watching right now, 4 of you do not want a free pin to be sent to you if you have it drawn. So, hey, it's your choice. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish packing this bits and pieces up for the ML-104, and then we can do that draw. But if you've just joined in late, see how my hand just naturally went here to copy paste on a keyboard that's not even built? Oh, my keyboard's over here. Yeah, so I just pull out the drawer from my filing cabinet. Hilarity. Then here is a link to go to that sheet, fill it in, and then once I finish packing up the rest of the bits and pieces, we can do the draw. Now, what I was originally going to do, by the way, also, is I was going to put the bottom row from this Akko set into it, just to make sure the bottom row was actually set up correctly, because the bottom row for the ML actually supports multiple layouts, which is pretty cool. And I always do that because a couple of years back, when I built a 60% on live stream on New Year's Eve, because I had nothing better to do, I stuffed up the bottom row multiple times. I had to desolder it and then resolder it to get it to work. And now I've learnt my lesson. I always fit keycaps on switches and fill the bottom row of a keyboard when I build it, because that's the easiest way for me to be able to build it without having to desolder. Absolute pain. I'm having a real harebrained moment. Foam goes in. And that is the sound of my wife dying from her cold or flu. Flu season is upon us for those who are in the southern hemisphere, especially in Australia. I've had my flu shot. Work provided it, so I was pretty lucky in that context. If you have not had your flu shot, I would highly recommend it, right? And if you have a choice to be a anti-vaccine type of person, okay, that's fine. It's your choice, but just be aware of the impact that it's going to have on other people around you. I know that's getting political, and I shouldn't really be talking about these kinds of things because it's a keyboard channel, but the health of my family, the health of my child who goes to daycare, who's vaccinated, is really important to me. And if you've ever seen her on stream or in any of my videos playing around, you know, I would hate for anything to happen to her because of somebody else's choice in something that's so simple. So, yeah. So Isaac, you say a 65% down bubble would be awesome. Can you please define what you mean by a 65% down bubble? Like a 65% split keyboard? But part of the down bubbles, I suppose, design intent was the numpad. So you can't do that with a 65%. Right, that will have to stay for later. That can go in the box in a moment. Find the screwdriver. Snap. So, plastic, metal. Metal could be nicer. All right, well, everything is all squared away. So I'm going to say 10 more seconds from the live stream count. So I'll use my hand because there's always a delay between what I'm saying and actually what happens on the stream. And then we'll close the form. So there's 9 people watching now. I am going to, holy crap, I almost went and tried to paste again on this in front of me. So the last time is I'm just going to paste that link. If you've just joined in the chat, then we're going to go with get in that form, fill it in, and I'm going to close the form in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay. So the form is no longer accepting responses. So there's only 5 responses right now. So we're going to go from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nicholas, Granny, Sebastian, Isaac, and Juanildo. So let's pop that out. Let's go to... Oh. All right. I just literally went and tried to type on this thing. I'm taking it off because it's going to catch me every freaking time. Camera struggling to focus on nothing. Random.org. Okay. So we're going to go 1 to 1000. Now everybody has... So, Juanildo, you've just put yourself out of the race because the number is between 1 to 1000 and you've put 1303. So, it looks like it's a 4-man race. Let's go to the right monitor. There. So I just want I'm not really trying to poke fun at you here, but so there's your responses, and it's 1303, which is between 1 and 1000. You might have misread it and thought it was 10,000. Let me just find out from everybody in the chat. Should we let Juanildo drop the N3? So it'll be 1,000. Sorry, 130. You put 103? All right. So Juanildo says 103. I will accept 103. I will accept 103. All right. So let's go with 1 to 1000. Generate. Closest winner is 738. So the closest to 738 today is middleman Sebastian. Sebastian Sarush. All right. Congratulations, Sebastian. This pin is going to come your way once I can get something to package it in, which is cool bananas. So please contact me via email. Send me an email to theboardpodcast@gmail.com with your mailing address, including your name. Please send your name with it, and I will get that pin out to you very, very shortly. You know, I've actually done things like this before, right? Where people have won and then they send me an address and they don't give me their name. So I'm like, do you want me to send it to your internet name or what? And then I have to contact them and get a response back and stuff like that. It's just like, if somebody wants your address, they got to know who to address it to, right? Okay, well, you know, this was a lot shorter than I anticipated. I want to say thanks to all of you guys for actually coming along. It's a little bit of a letdown, I suppose, just in general, unfortunately, because of circumstance. But these things happen, right? These things happen. I don't know if I'll have time to actually do a live stream for when I build it next. But once all the other bits and pieces come into play, I still will do a build video, right? I'll just shoot it over a couple of periods of time as I have it to put it together, and then I'll compile it, and then we can check out the completed build for it at the end. So, Juanildo is now trying to figure out what's happening in regards to that. Sebastian, it's entirely up to you. I don't mind. You can send me a fresh email. You can continue the existing chain. It doesn't matter. As long as I get your address, then I'll be able to get this pin out to you. Now, just to wrap up, so Isaac says, no top row, nav keys in the middle where the numpad is. Oh, okay. So we're talking about that cluster only. So these keys in the middle rotated. Is that what you're talking about? Now, I think we're pretty much wrapped on that. Okay, so Isaac says yes. So we're talking about the nav cluster here in the middle, porting that over into the middle of a split and giving it the rotation to fit. So yeah, you know what, that could work. It'd be a much smaller, I suppose, compact than a standard layout of that variety in a sense. Obviously the footprint's going to be slightly bigger, but it could be doable. Could be doable. We'll see how that goes. Certainly it would be easy to develop and 3D print and stuff like that, but then doing the PCB is not really that hard. The most challenging part really is just the case design and of course the cost of fabricating it. Whereas if you just want a 3D model for it that would work with the PCB, then potentially, you know, that like 3D printed or laser cut, that kind of stuff with acrylic, then it probably would be a lot easier to manage. Okay, cool bananas. Well, once again, I'm going to wrap up here. I'm going to say thank you guys for coming along for this very short stream. I'm going to say thank you to all of our people who are Patreon supporters who might be checking this out. I know I should give them more shout outs and thank yous. I used to have like a splash screen that I would put at the end of my video, but our Patreon list is really funny because we get a lot of people who come on and drop off, and to update that list constantly, it's just something that I haven't been doing, which is why I haven't been using it, because I haven't updated it. There's been a lot of ups and downs and people repledging and then depledging, which is perfectly fine, right? Look, I'm still going to be doing this. I'm still going to be podcasting, even if I didn't have a Patreon running. So don't feel bad about it at all. If your circumstances prevent you from supporting, just keep enjoying our content, keep telling people about it, keep sharing it, keep hitting that like button, and I would be more than happy for that to be the case. Well, I'm going to call it. Looking at the time, it's about 11 o'clock. So yeah, might have another cup of tea and see if my wife needs to go to a doctor or something like that. We'll just have to see. All right, well, hooroo. Thank you very much, Isaac, in regards to the build when it gets happening. And of course, as usual, until next time, happy clacking. And we wait for the cutoff.